In all life destinations, guideposts are mounted along the way to lead us to them. In each segment of the road, in each intersection, one finds guideposts to lead us along the journey. Guideposts exist not exactly to make our journeys short, but so that we may reach our destination, lest we get lost. The solemnity of the Epiphany, which we celebrate this Sunday, speaks of the full manifestation of the Messiah, not just to Israel, but to the whole world as symbolized by the Magi, who came in search of the newborn King of the Jews. The word Epiphany comes from a Greek word that means revelation. Epiphany then, as a Christian feast, speaks of the revelation of the God-man Jesus to all nations and not just to Israelites. This is the overriding theme of all the readings for today. Even today's responsorial psalm speaks of this truth. Lord, every nation on earth will adore you. Today's gospel reading speaks of the beautiful epiphany of the child God, the Niño Jesus. Amazingly, this revelation doesn't happen in some kind of public, loud, and festive presentation of Jesus. Instead, it happened silently, gently, and even at night. God's revelation here is more the appearance of the divine to those who seek it. God shows Himself to those who run and search for God. Indeed, one can say that God reveals Himself passively to those who actively seek Him out. God provides guideposts here, and we find God only when we follow these guideposts. So, what are these guideposts that we find in our gospel reading? First, events of the natural order lead us to God's revelation. This is the sign of the Star of Bethlehem that guided the Magi toward Jerusalem. Nature, being created by God, is still a sure way that opens our lives to the divine presence, despite the corruption brought to the natural order when sin entered the world. Nature is never a hindrance to the divine, because they are still a reflection of God who created it. Yes, there are traces of corruption of sin in nature, but that's why in our search for God in nature, we need prayerful discernment to separate what hinders us from God and what brings us to Him. Secondly, people in our lives lead us to God's revelation. If nature is a reflection of God because it was created by God, then human beings are primary guideposts in our journey to God because humans were created also. And more than this, we were created in God's image and likeness. It is noteworthy that the Star of Bethlehem guided the Magi to Jerusalem, but the Magi still needed help from human leaders. And of all sources of help, it had to be the scheming, arrogant, and envious King Herod, whose only intent was to kill the newborn King of the Jews. Yes, mystery of all mysteries. Even bad people in God's plan can sometimes be guideposts leading us to Him. Thirdly, the grace of inner disposition can lead us to God. When the Magi saw the star of the newborn King rising, their impulse was to search for this newborn King and pay Him homage. The Magi were seeking the newborn King to adore Him and pay Him homage. It was not because of curiosity and not to get something out of the King of the Jews. The grace of inner disposition of adoration leads us to God. The Magi were seeking the newborn King not because they wanted something out of or a favor from Him, but because they recognized that this newborn King deserves homage, deserves gifts. And what did the Magi bring? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gifts that symbolize the reality and destiny of the child. Gold signifying the kingly nature of the child, frankincense symbolizing the priestly office of the child and his divine nature, because incense is offered only to the divine. And myrrh, signifying his prophetic destiny, ends with the sacrificial death for the salvation of all, because myrrh is anointed to the corpse before burial. Today, we ask ourselves, do we pay attention to the guideposts that God gives us so that we may recognize Him and His guidance in our lives? Do we allow nature to guide us, or does nature hinder us from seeking God? How do other people bring us closer to God? Good people surrounding us make us feel God's presence. But how do evil people become instruments of God in our lives? What is our inner disposition when we seek God? Is it because we want something from Him? Or perhaps because we want to pay Him homage, to adore Him, like what the Magi did?